welcome to episode 425 of the podcast, devoted to the classic and sometimes not so classic genre cinema of yesteryear. I'm your writer, host, producer, Derek M. Cook, and I am still recovering from what was one of the absolute best weekends of the year, if not this podcast's entire life, if not my entire life. I absolutely adore the Monster Bash, and this past weekend I spent 4 days in Mars, Pennsylvania with my fellow monster kids at Monster Bash. And I gotta tell you, I had some difficulties getting there and getting back, thanks to American Airlines, grumble, but it doesn't matter, because when I was there, it was all washed away. It was totally worth it. And yeah, there were delays getting home, but the memories of the Bash keeping me going, keeping me in the most positive of spirits and moods, because the Bash is Mecca. It's the happiest place on earth. It is the destination. It's the end of the rainbow. It's everything that us monster kids could want. And I know I'm laying it on pretty thick, but it's not just me that thinks that. There were so many people that I saw at Monster Bash this year just smiling as they walked in and walked out. My table, the Monster Kid Radio table, was right there at the very front of, the event. People actually had to go by me. Sometimes they would actually stop thinking that I was registration, but they would actually go by me to get into registration. And because I had my table set up before the dealer's room. I had my table set up last. As the dealer's room had closed, I was still there. Monster Kid Radio, Derek M. Cook, and friends were there representing and having a grand time. I went a little old school this time around. We're using the banner that we used last year, which is actually the old banner that I created years ago at the very beginning of this podcast, back for episode 1 when I was recording at a convention here in Portland that is no longer going on. Anyway, it's the old Monster Kid Radio logo. And when was the last time you saw me at a convention with a Hawaiian shirt? That's what I wore this time around. I was the big guy wearing the Hawaiian shirt who looks like he's having the most fun in the room or at the convention. It was amazing. The shirts were kind of fun too, but the Bash, I'm telling you, man, if you haven't been to Monster Bash, I highly recommend you get there to at least the summer show. I've never been to the October show, and I've never been to the big movie event that they do, the big movie weekend they do. But the summer show, I can tell you, it's tops. It really is. Now, I'm going to bring to you over the next few weeks a taste, some recordings, some audio, and maybe even some video down the line that was captured at Monster Bash. And that's what you're going to get in this episode of Monster Kid Radio. Let me tell you who you're going to hear. Now, some of these people are people that you've heard on the show before, because Monster Bash is not just about making new friends, it's about meeting old ones as well. So, you're going to hear Reber Clark, Dan Day Jr., and Stephen D. Sullivan. And then, to change it up, new voices, new people who have never been on the show before, Kevin Slick and Ron MacCloskey. Well, we are kind of changing up the format a little bit of this episode of Monster Kid Radio. We can do a show without hearing from Professor Frenzy with a Bedtime Story, or Kenny with his look at famous monsters of Filmland, or even Dr. Tongue's World of Monster Collectibles. We're going to do all of that right after this.
Christopher, what insanity are you up to today?
Oh, hey, Lydia. I'm downloading some movies.
What? People are always telling me that's illegal.
Not these. They're all public domain. Oh, look, Rescue from Gilligan's Island.
Well, let me see what you're doing. Oh, you're at archive.org. Well, they have thousands of films, TV shows, commercials, radio shows, and books available.
Yeah, but there are so many. I wish there's a podcast or something that would discuss these things. Give us an idea of what's worth the time.
Christopher, there is. We do one.
Oh, that's right. We host Orphan Entertainment. Once a month, we pick something and review and discuss it. That sure is nice of us.
Sure. Why don't you click over to Orphan Entertainment and remind yourself a little more about the show?
Oh, will do. Let's see, that's at orphanentertainment.com. And yeah, it looks like we're available on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Oh, hey, can we review the Gilligan's Island movie someday?
We'll see, Christopher. We'll see.
Opens its horror vault to release 3 macabre masterpieces. Bela Lugosi as Count Dracula, Lord High Priest of the living dead, begins a legend of fear as he claims the soul of his first victim with the mark of the vampire. Boris Karloff as the evil Fu Manchu, his passion for power twisting his brilliant mind as he revels in the horrors of human sacrifice and torture. Behind the mask of Fu Manchu. Frederick March as the futuristic experimenter Dr. Jekyll, using chemistry to expand his mind, delving into the taboos of the unnatural, to free the primitive, savage murderer, Mr. Hyde, in the screen's first classic portrayal of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Bela Lugosi, Mark of the Vampire. Boris Karloff, The Mask of Fu Manchu. Frederick March. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Torture, terror, taboo, together in a triple trip to the time when terror began. Now from MGM. Three immortal horrors never seen on the little screen.
Monster Kid Radio presents Dr. Tongue's World of Monster Collectibles. Spanning the globe looking for monster goo so you don't have to. Dateline, Anytown, USA. Well, folks, it's finally summer, and you know what that means. Convention season. While a lot of you out there are recovering from Monster Bash this past weekend in Pennsylvania, Mr. Cook, I'm looking in your direction, a lot of other people are preparing to attend the convention of their choice later this year. Conventions of interest specifically to Monster Kids, and mind you, some of the heavy hitters from this year have already happened. There's Monster Bash, Monsterpalooza, Chiller Theater, and Crypticon in Seattle. But there are a ton of other conventions still to come this year, so get your plans in order, and here's a quick list in no particular order. Mask Fest and Horror Hound Weekend happening in Indianapolis in early September, Scarefest out of Kentucky also in September, as well as Son of Monsterpalooza in Burbank. The Oktoberfest version of Monster Bash in Pennsylvania is in, what else? October, as well as Chiller Theater's Fall Show in New Jersey and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival here in good old Portland, Oregon. The granddaddy of all comic conventions happens July 18th through the 21st in San Diego, California. Of course, I am talking about the San Diego Comic-Con, or SDCC for short. Founded in 1970, this overhyped, overattended convention has turned into a multi-armed pop culture kraken over its 29 years. Due to its sheer size, I can't even think about going to it anymore. But the reason I bring it up? Do you happen to remember a couple of months ago? That is, if you were paying attention to my blatherings here on the podcast. I made mention that Super 7 is going to be operating once again, this year, their Universal Monster-themed bodega store. This is a store that carries nothing but Universal Monster-inspired merchandise. A majority of it made specifically for the store, opened only during SDCC. The good news is, if you live within the vicinity of the bodega, located in downtown San Diego, you do not have to have convention credentials to get into the shop. The bad news, if you don't get in the store early enough, you may miss out on a lot of the exclusive merchandise. And guess what? You're probably going to have to go to eBay to try to get it. As of this recording, the list of goodies has not been released, but I can make a guess that there will definitely be some new reaction figures in exclusive colors and packaging, just like they did last year, as well as exclusive t-shirts are always given. Other than that, I'm drawing a blank, and you'll have to wait, like I have, to find out what monster goodies will be for sale. I'm still looking for a roll of that mummy bath tissue and the Frankenstein lighter from last year. Who's holding? Artist Spotlight! This fella is no stranger to a lot of you that have collected screen-printed posters and t-shirts over the years, especially of the B-movie monster type. Take 1 part Tattoo Flash, 1 part B-movie monsters, add a healthy dash of burlesque, and you have Mitch O'Connell's art. Mitch O'Connell is what you would call one of the old men of the lowbrow art scene. Hailing out of Chicago, Illinois, and not short of ego, Mitch bills himself as the world's greatest artist. And to be honest, if you have seen his stuff, I wholeheartedly agree. Recent limited edition posters of his include subject matter such as Mars Attacks, inspired invasion of an old movie theater, Vampira playing Mystery Date with a plethora of Universal monsters, and coming up, a very cool tribute to the Rick Baker spawned Octoman. Head on over to Mitch's Etsy shop, Mitch O'Connell of course, and check out his line of silkscreen posters, as well as go over to Amazon, use the MKR link of course so you get a taste of the sale, and check out his art books. It's good old school monster stuff for everybody, but remember kids, it is a little risque for some tastes. You have been warned. Spotlight on vintage monster toys! Today in the Vintage Spotlight, I want to talk about one of my favorite lines in my collection. In 1964, which by the way is a very big year for monster toys, Palmer Plastics Company released a line of monsters onto toy store shelves, much to the delight of the ravenous monster kids everywhere. These larger stylized monster figures, standing approximately 3 inches tall, included some very strange choices for toys at this time. The set of 8 figures featured monsters from the original Frankenstein, Dracula, a very stylized Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, King Kong with a very small fairy figure that is always lost to the ages, and this is where it gets a little weird. A Cyclops creature based on the 7th Voyage of Sinbad, minus the fur pants and cloven hoofs, and It, the Terror from Beyond Space, minus the Ray Crash Corrigan chin tongue of course, and my favorite of the line, Gorgo. Produced in multiple colors, yellow, red, and green being the most common, less common are light blue, and really hard to find are the white cast figures. I have seen tan figures, but have not been able to confirm if it was a white figure that has turned a shade of tan over the years, or if it was actually molded that way. These were sold in toy stores across the country in blister packs that featured several different monsters from the line, as well as really cool header art. And they were also bagged and tagged rack toy style with 2 figures and a small gun, so you could use it as a target set. These figures over the last 4 or 5 years have been steadily rising in price, so you can expect to pay a little more for the light blue and white ones. Got any sneak peeks of monster merchandise coming out soon? Drop Derek a line, and he'll forward it along to me here at MKR. And hey, if you're interested, you can see what's happening at my toy store over on Instagram at Dr. Tongue's Toys, or over on Facebook under Dr. Tongue's I Had That Shop. Or on my private account, MonsterBand64, to see some of the cool stuff I pick up for my own personal collection. This is Mark Dr. Tongue Peterson saying, happy monster collecting, everybody. I'm out. Peace.
Welcome to an evening with Karloff, the master of menace in 5 fright-filled features. Watch breathlessly as the coffin opens to release the terror duck. It's only Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Join Boris Karloff in the most gruesome day of the undead, Black Sabbath. blood-chilling delights. Die, monster, die, and who knows? You may die, laughing at the comedy of terrors. 5 of Karloff's creepiest capers in nightmare colors. And you are invited.
Good evening, Monster Kids. This is the Count. I'm here with some friends to tell you about our favorite board and card game podcast. It's Go Forth and Game. Tom and Ryan talk about all things gaming with special emphasis on interviews with game designers and publishers. What do you think about this, my tall, gaunt friend? Go Forth, Game. Good. And what about you, my undead comrade? I think Go Forth and Game is the most entertaining podcast about board and card games that I've come across in 4,522 years. So, if you enjoy listening to two monster kids discuss topics like abstract games, the best family games, game schooling, various game mechanics, and of course, monster-themed games, then you should give Go Forth and Game a try. That's goforthandgame.com, available on iTunes and Spotify.
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy, show.
Welcome to Professor Frenzy's Bedtime Stories, created especially for Monster Kid Radio. My name is Jerry Green. In this segment, I'm going to tell you a story from EC Horror Comics. Today's story is Vampire. It is from The Haunt of Fear, number 16, the July-August issue from 1950. It was written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein, and the art was by Johnny Craig. So sit back, relax, while I tell this blood-curdling tale. Jim Reed is the only doctor out on the remote Marsh Island, a swampy, humid island off the coast of Louisiana. A woman has turned up dead, her blood drained, and 2 puncture holes in her neck. Dr. Reed had studied in Hungary and was familiar with the ways of the undead. He told Police Chief Hughes his opinion on the cause of death is by vampire. Hughes wasn't convinced. Reed insisted he put the vampire theory in the official paperwork. This caused Dr. Reed to be a source of amusement in the small, isolated community. He was roundly ridiculed by the populace. Chief Hughes told you so. A few days later, Reed got a call from one Mr. Winslow, the employer of the dead girl. He said that his daughter Nelda is not well. She was weak and in bed. That night, Dr. Reed went over to their house where Mr. Winslow is in a full tuxedo, even in this brutal heat. Reed found that Nelda had 2 puncture wounds in her neck. Dr. Reed told Mr. Winslow to sit and watch her all night, and he would come back to check on her the next day. Winslow said to come the next night, as he wouldn't be around during the day. Reed asked people in the town about Winslow. Turns out he is only seen at night and always wore the same tuxedo. The next night, he visited Nelda again. She was weaker than she was the night before. Mr. Winslow must be the vampire and is feeding on Nelda, the doctor thought. Since everyone in town knows he suspects a vampire is loose, Mr. Winslow may too. Dr. Reed's life is in danger. Reed lied to Winslow about Nelda's condition and left the house quickly and said he would return the next evening. Instead, Dr. Reed planned to go over to the Winslow house during the day. However, a new body is found, drained of blood, with 2 puncture marks in the neck. Reed loses track of time taking care of the issue. He doesn't get to the Winslow house until after sundown. But then he finds Nelda up and looking perky. The doctor tells Nelda that her father is a vampire and is feeding on her. The reason she feels better now is that last night he found another victim. He left, but told her to lock the door and only answer it for him. Dr. Reed set out across the bayou, but was attacked by a bat. He fought it off with a cross, but then, in the distance, Reed saw Mr. Winslow running towards him. He hid behind a tree, and when Winslow got close enough, Reed stabbed him through the heart with a wooden stake. He returned to Nelson's room, exhausted from his ordeal. She let him lay down in her bed. He told her what happened, but she corrected him. "My father isn't a vampire," she said. Her father was out in the swamp protecting her from Reed's cross. She wasn't weak because she lost blood. She was weak because she hadn't had any in a long time. And that she felt better because she finally found a victim. Nelsa Winslow is the vampire, and tonight she will feed on Dr. Reed. The end. I hope you enjoyed that messy story. In the world of EC Comics, it's safe to say that you never really know what's going on until the very end. They sure love throwing misdirection at us, first leading us to think the vampire is the father, but then exposing that it's really the daughter. I can't say that a modern reader would be fooled. We know that the writers are trying to trick us, and it's all part of the fun. And we are in a post-Sixth Sense world. We're looking for the trick. I always wondered what a 1950 reader's experience was. Were they shocked at the twist? However, why Mr. Winslow invited the doctor, who knows about vampires, to check out his daughter when he knew darned well what the problem was, is beyond me. It seems like a risky move. Motivation, pshaw. Johnny Craig's art is, as always, excellent. The panel where Dr. Reed is driving the stake into Mr. Winslow shows the doctor wild-eyed with his face partly in shadow, very intense. Nelda looks very glamorous, and the swamp is full of swarming bugs. You really get the feeling for being in an isolated swamp. If you're interested in a copy of The Haunt of Fear Volume 1, the book can be purchased on Amazon, and you can find a link to buy it on the MKR website. I hope you enjoyed the story. My name is Jerry Green, and you can find me on my podcast, The Professor Frenzy Show, where we talk about new indie comics, and Bat Books for Beginners, where we talk about historical Batman and Bat Family comics. You can also catch me on Twitter at Professor Frenzy, and search for Professor Frenzy on YouTube, where you can find The Professor Frenzy Show and some exciting projects we have coming up. Stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy show. Professor Frenzy, it's a show. Professor Frenzy show.
Vampires, werewolves, zombies.
Yes, these things are real, but fortunately for those of us who can afford him, so is Mark Temple.
And he's good. Real good. He's a former FBI agent turned freelancer with the knowledge and skills to eliminate your monster problems. And his rates are negotiable.
Monster Hunter for Hire, the first volume of the Supernatural Solutions, the Mark Temple Case Files, is now available in both ebook and paperback. Go to tinyurl.com/monsterhuntertemple to buy your copy of Derek M. Cook's latest book.
Read about Mark Temple, the experienced professional now available to rid you of your supernatural, ghoulish, and monstrous pests.
That's tinyurl.com/monsterhuntertemple.
And don't worry, Mark Temple is discreet.
Once a normal, voluptuously beautiful woman, she drove into a nightmare of horror and saw descending from the sky a titanic monster whose fearsome touch became a frightful curse.
You think I'm drunk, don't you? All of you! I'm not drunk! I'm not! You've got to believe me!
Please.
It was right in the middle of the highway. away. 30 feet tall.
Once she's in the booby hatch, throw the key away. That'll put you in the driver's seat. You'd make a wild driver, Harry. With $50 million.
What she saw was beyond belief until others, too, faced its hideous, uncontrollable menace. Attack of the 50-foot woman, incredibly huge, with incredible desires for love and vengeance.
Hello there, Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at famous monsters of Filmland. Today, Derek starts his coverage of the fabulous 2019 Monster Bash, so I thought it would be appropriate to take a look at the first Famous Monsters of Filmland convention held in New York City, November of 1974. On the back cover of FM 110, we find the first announcement of the con. Here is what it had to say. Here it is, the most monsterific convention ever held. A world-famous monster rally sponsored by Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, to be held on the Veterans Day holiday weekend in November of this year, featuring a 4-day festival of famous names and fabulous events and exhibitions in the wide world of monsters, an all-star cast of celebrities, movie personalities, and creatures, straight out of the pages of Warren Publishing's Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. This is a famous monster con that will make history. Make plans now to attend. In FM 112, there's an article that previews the con entitled Monsters of the World Unite. The article begins with mention of invitations made to Fay Wray, Christopher Lee, and Vincent Price. No promises are made, but Forey hopes at least one of them will attend. The article goes on to mention that Forey will definitely be there with memorabilia to share with fans. An auction will be held where a fan can buy an hour with the Acro Monster. The article continues with this appeal. Monday the 11th, 5,000 fans are expected to attend the Famous Monsters Convention, an event they'll still be breathlessly describing in the 21st century, an event that you owe it to yourself to attend. How will you be able to face your grandchildren if they ask, Granddaddy or Grandma, what did you do at the first Monster Con? Is it true you won a prize at the masquerade? Did you really see the great Vincent Price alive in person? Did Forey Ackerman actually wear Dracula's cape? How will you ever live down the shame if you have to confess to your grandchildren that you missed the single greatest film monster event of the century? Details of the location are given, with rooms running as low as $21 a night. That's in 1974 dollars. That would be $103 today. The preview ends with this pun-filled paragraph. Fat, skinny, tall, small, young, old, ancient, male, female, or monster, all are welcome at the Famous Monsters Convention. The Mummy says, come and rap with me. King Kong says, take it from me, you'll fall for it. Dracula says, you bet your life I'll be there. Dr. Jekyll says, I'd give anything to be there, and I will. Frankenstein says, I'll get it all together and attend. Igor says, I'll break my neck to be on hand. We can promise you one thing, this will be the most unconventional convention you'll ever attend. How did the convention go? In FM 115, this poem by Scott Hawk tells all. The Famous Monsters of Filmland convention was a marvelous sight to behold. Whoever thought up this fantastic invention should have himself plated in gold. The first thing I saw when I entered the room was 2 posters on the opposite wall. Godzilla destroying a city, kaboom, and Frankenstein having a ball. And then there were rooms each had a display, each one more terrific than the other. The first contained fantastic posters which could only be loved by their mother. The next had great stills, the next contained models, all of which were horrifically grand, and you could buy most of these items if you had enough money on hand. And below in the lobby the Warren Room stood, each containing some marvelous stuff. The first held the old Gogos paintings, and resisting them was awfully tough. The next was a madhouse, asylum by others, where collectors were peddling their wares, back issues of FM and others, at terrifically reasonable fares. The last of the rooms contained all of the masks, which in Horrorwood Don Post created, and calling the whole lot fantastic would leave his work far underrated. And then came the ultimate greatest of all, great personalities appearing. Recalling the names of a few of the stars has already sent me a tearing. The first one I saw was the publisher, Warren, a real nut by anyone's rating. I'm a star, come on, do me a favor, hold my posters, to me he was stating. And then there was someone you'd all recognize, a relative of someone gory. You'd have to know her by the great popping eyes, the daughter of great Peter Lorre. Lee couldn't make it, nor could Price or Ray. Ah well, that's a whole different story. But somebody came who completed my trip, the Ackerman himself, old Forey. He showed films of his old home and slides of his new. His lectures and speeches were numbing. And also the relics from old films he brought certainly made it worth coming. And then came Vern Langdon, my heart skipped a beat. He shouldn't be taken for granted. My Friday night rundown would not be complete without his apes straight from the planet. The Isle of Lost Souls, The Invisible Man were some of the films that they showed. At seeing the sight of these old faithful flicks, the folks in the audience glowed. And then came the quiz. It was awfully tough, but you could have got them if you knew enough. From reading the poem which I have just written, you'll certainly see my intention. One thing for a long time I'll not be forgetting is the first famous Monsters Convention. In future segments, we will see more detailed reports on the con. For Monster Kid Radio, this is Kenny, and we've just seen a bit of Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Hi, this is Jeff Owens from the Classic Horrors Club.
And I'm Richard Chamberlain from kccinephile.com and monstermoviekid.wordpress.com. We'd like to invite you to attend the next monthly meeting of the Classic Horrors Club on the Phantom Podcast Network. We think you'll enjoy our show, but don't take our word for it. Let's ask some of our listeners what they think. Excuse me, sir. What did you say after listening to the Classic Horrors Club podcast?
I'll never smile again.
Wow, that's a little mean.
How about you, sir? Would you recommend the Classic Horrors Club podcast?
It would be very dangerous, not only for you, but for others.
Well, we do talk about classic horror, from Silent Scream to Halloween and everything scary in between, but I don't think I'd call it dangerous.
I think that's enough from our listeners. I've always said we have the, best fans. Why don't you give us a try yourselves? We meet once a month during the Classic Horrors Club podcast on the Phantom Podcast Network, found at downrightcreepy.com or at classichorrors.club.
Oh wait, here's one more listener walking his pet. What do you think of the Classic Horrors Club podcast?
There's the stink of hell on this train. Even the dog knows it.
First night in the age of horror.
Very well. I pleaded with you to let me leave in peace. But you refused. Now, look.
Monster. Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Mike Raven add diabolical chills to the story of a man who made the trip to the other world once too often.
Mr. Blake?
Now for him, Earth is nothing more than a terror stop somewhere between hell and the other world.
Waiting for?
I, Monster. Recommended only if your veins can stand the cold torment of evil. Not storybook evil, but the evil you may face this very night. I, Monster. The other you. I, Monster. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Yeah, let's do some recording here. Reber Clark is the first person to get recorded here at Monster Bash for Monster Kid Radio. How you doing, man?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm good now. You got in Thursday night, right?
I got in last night, yes.
Okay.
From Chicago, but you were held up in Chicago.
So it's your fault.
It is my fault.
Okay.
We put a hit out on you.
No.
That's Chicago for you.
What did I do? I don't understand. This is your first bash, man.
My first bash, and it's fantastic. I met Veronica Carlson, had a very nice chat. She's just lovely.
She's a sweetheart.
She really is.
So sweet. But you had met her before, hadn't you?
No, I had not met Veronica. I'd met Martine Beswick and Caroline Monroe. So yes.
Yeah, we're talking about Veronica and Carolyn and all that.
And the reason we're talking about them, House of the Gorgon.
House of the Gorgon.
Premiering in the U.S. tomorrow night at 7:30.
And I'm told there's going to be a second show that they're actually doing 2 screenings. So I don't know if it's official yet, but...
Well, I hope so.
Interest is high.
Same night?
Yes.
For anybody who's interested, when does this go out? I have a ton of CDs that I would love to unload.
Yeah, actually, I'll be putting this episode out on in less than a week.
Oh, okay.
So how can people find you to buy these CDs?
They can go to ReberClark.com or they can go to ReberClark.bandcamp.com. You can get it as a download or a CD or a download and a CD.
There you go. I can tell you, listeners, because I did the sound editing, I listened to the movie and the soundtrack 40, 50 times.
Wow.
Never got bored.
Oh, fantastic. Wow, that's unusual.
Never got bored with the movie, never got bored with the music.
I know, the movie clips right along. I was impressed with his editing. It's just so focused.
He's really good.
He is really on it. He's good. Yeah.
I want to say he's an up-and-comer, but man, he's already there. He's
already there.
He's got it.
Yep. Yes, I agree.
So we got House of the Gorgon. What else are you looking forward to here at the Bash, though?
Just meeting the stars and we're just getting the general lay of the land. The feel is good. I like the people that I've met so far, and it just feels great. I'd like to maybe pick up some DVDs and Blu-rays, and then seeing all the great movies. There's tons of great movies.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was such a movie-oriented thing.
They have tons of films going, tons of Q&As.
Yeah. Oh, I see your book, your new book.
That's right.
I downloaded a copy.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
It's Mark Temple.
That's right.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm selling copies of my book. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. We're just kind of slowly easing into Monster Bash right now, and I'm stoked.
Great.
I'm excited.
Did you sleep well?
I slept hard.
Yeah.
I slept real hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So... yeah, it was
okay.
It was a challenge. People who follow me on Facebook know that it was a challenge.
Well, last night hung out with Josh, the director of House of the Gorgon, and some of the actors, and looking forward to hanging out with everybody.
Should be a good time. So one thing we do. Did we do this when you were on the show? Did we play the game?
I've done this once before.
Well, let's bust out some cards here. We're going to play the first round of the Classic 5 here at Monster Bash.
All right.
Let me give these a good shuffle here, maybe.
Pretty good.
All right, that's good enough. All right, Reber, here we go. Card number 1. What is your favorite William Castle gimmick?
I'm going through them. I'm going to the ones I've been to.
Okay.
There was some movie I went to where they handed out vampire blood. Can't remember what it was. It was in little white packets. But I was probably 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
When I got home, I opened it to taste it, and it was just colored water, So at least it wasn't poison. But I was actually was involved in some of that stuff. I mean, actually encountered it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But I can't remember the name of the movie.
So whichever one was the one they gave out the blood.
And there was another one, wasn't a William Castle, I don't think it was called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, but they also had promotions like that as you went into the theater.
And they really don't do a lot of that anymore. I wish they did.
Well, no, I wish they did. I think it was rigor mortis milk or something. It was just awful, It was horrible.
So if they had to give something away, like a little gimmick or whatever, for House of the Gorgon, what should it be, you think?
Either an eyeball, a Gorgon's eye.
I was going to say like rocks or something, but
Rocks?
Well, they turn...
sure. Yeah.
You saw the movie, right?
Well, yeah, once or twice. Yeah, wow. Rocks. That'd be funny.
I like Gorgon's eye, though. That's better.
The Gorgon's
Much better
eye.
than
Don't look at it.
Right.
Maybe it lights up.
All right, card number 2 from the Universal deck. Which movie do you prefer, Tarantula or The Deadly Mantis?
Deadly Mantis, hands down, yeah.
Really?
Tarantula always looked fake to me. Mantis looked fake, but I bought it.
But it's got no John Agar, though. I mean, come on.
I'm all about the monster.
All right. All right, card number 3. This is from the Monster Bash deck. Horror hosts. Do you like them to interact with the film or just shut up and show the movie?
I would rather they shut up and show the movie. They can do things in between, like on breaks.
Okay.
But I would rather they would just shut up and show the movie and maybe do some routines in the breaks.
Okay, all right. Card number 4. What's your favorite Evelyn Ankers film or role in a Universal film?
I have no idea who that is.
So she's the lead female in The Wolfman?
Oh. Well, let's say The Wolfman then.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know anybody, don't know anything. Just kind of sit in my room.
So you've seen. So there's the final cards from our Universal deck.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about The Invisible Man and Bride of Frankenstein.
Right.
There's an actress in that, Una O'Connor.
Oh yeah.
Do you prefer her in The Invisible Man or Bride of Frankenstein?
Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, there's a reason why we talk about it to this day.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't stand her.
Really?
I've warmed up to her.
Just irritated by her? Or
when I first encountered
was it the
film,
screaming?
Yeah, when I first encountered the film, I was just like, come on. But as I've watched the movies, she's warmed up.
And you have to put yourself back in the 30s, and theater, kind of a mindset.
Yeah.
And once you do that, yeah.
Well, plus she plays a double role in Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, she's the maid at the very, very beginning sequence with Mary Shelley and all that. She comes in with whatever. So.
Right.
So she was capable of acting without screaming.
And I just wonder if it's some kind of psychological thing. Because we're in this tense thing, and then all of a sudden, the windmill and everything. And then she's just screaming and being kind of this funny relief.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of puts the audience person, kind of puts you off balance. And maybe that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a technique that, I don't know.
James Whale was a master. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So and it puts the audience off balance and we don't really know what's going on here. Is it funny? Is it scary?
Right.
And so if you're off balance, then he can take you wherever he wants.
Exactly.
So that's possible. I don't know. I don't know anything about theater.
I'm going to say that sounds good to me, man.
Okay. And I always confused her with Maria Uspinskaya for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway.
I don't know much about either actress. I'd like to learn more, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a Classic 5. That was fun.
Okay,
I did
great,
that.
good. I'm glad.
So, what's coming up next for you? I mean, I know
Top secret projects. I've been sworn to secrecy. Well, so do I. Yeah. So one's for the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. It's a radio play that's a collection of 4 stories by H.P. Lovecraft, 4 of the collaborations. I think they're all collaborations.
Is this Dark Adventure Radio Theater, or is it something different?
Dark Adventure Radio Theater. It's
awesome.
And then the other one is Andrew Migliori and Lurker Films are producing something that you're doing the sound effects for.
That's right.
The Foley. Right. How's that going?
It's going pretty well. I just sent what I've got so far to the director, Woodruff.
Yep. Woodruff Laputka.
Yes. Who's very cool.
And who has shot stuff for National Geographic and a ton of the Smithsonian, ton of things.
Brenda and I were watching YouTube the other day, and his name popped up on an Atlas Obscura video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that's the guy.
Well, the movie looks really great.
It is amazingly cool looking.
It is.
The cinematographer, whose name I forget, did an amazing job.
Yeah. And I submitted some music. He liked some of it, didn't like some of it, so we're making some changes, but it makes perfect sense. I think I know what he's after.
Yeah, I just sent him a lot of the ambient sound that I've been working on and all that. Coming up with some of the sound effects has been a challenge, but a good challenge.
Yeah.
I'm really having fun with it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I'm kind of getting out of my comfort zone. A lot of vocal effects,
yeah,
choirs, and strange vocal things. So yeah,
right on.
And he likes that, and so that's good. But haven't done a lot of that, so it'll be fun.
One of my favorite pieces of music that you've done though has that in it.
Oh,
and
great.
that's some of the Azathoth stuff.
Oh, sure.
Where you've got the chanting of Azathoth happening.
Oh, that was The Haunter of the Dark.
Yeah,
H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, Dark Adventure Radio Theater. That is also on CD.
There you go.
I usually don't put them on CD, but I like the score enough to produce some CDs. Again, available at my Bandcamp site.
I'll make sure there's links in the show notes, of course. Reber's a friend of the show, and listeners, you got to check his stuff out. It's really good, and he gives us the okay to play his music every once in a while. So of course we're going to support him.
Anything,
yeah,
take it, do it.
So stay tuned to ReberClark.com to keep up with everything he's got going on, and again, go to his Bandcamp page, download all of his stuff. He's got some really good stuff there. Yeah. No, he's got some really good stuff. What was the short film with the August Derleth, like the heist?
It was called Derleth's Brain.
Yeah.
And it was, why did August Derleth changed the Elder Sign from H.P. Lovecraft's original design to the game design.
Right.
And it's about mysterious machinations behind that change.
It's a cool little short film, and the music makes it sound like this big heist, and I love it.
There is an August Derleth Film Festival in Racine, Wisconsin, or something.
Really?
Racine, Wisconsin, or something. Kenosha, maybe. And I'm thinking about submitting it to that.
You really should. I had no idea
It's
there was a
coming up
Derleth
in
Film Festival.
August. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, how many? I've never heard of any movies being made of his stuff, but it's a very obscure little festival.
Wasn't he involved with the story, The Shuttered Room? Didn't he have something to do with that?
Lurker at the Threshold. I know The Shuttered Room, maybe.
Because there was a film version of The Shuttered Room that I really liked.
There was, yeah.
With Oliver Reed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
Anyway. Yep, looking forward to the bash. Looking forward to all the stuff and the people. And
it's going to be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. Really
Good
looking
deal.
forward to it. So, you just recently heard him on Monster Kid Radio. It's a guy who told me as we're walking up to the table that he's a made man.
It's true.
It's Dan Day Jr. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm at Monster Bash. What else would I be doing?
Stupid question.
Yes.
Stupid question. Dan is an integral part to all things Gooey Films. He is the unofficial official president of the Josh Kennedy fan club.
Yeah, I'm his entourage. So I'm his one-man entourage.
See, that's what I want. I want to be in. That's why you're saying you're a made man. I want to be in.
Well, yeah, there's certain rules. There's certain regulations. You can't just bring anybody in because you gotta make sure that the right people are there. So, but I think I can sneak you in.
Okay.
I think there's like a side door to the Joshua Kennedy entourage, and I think I can. We just wait until like in the middle of something going on, we can just nobody knows.
Me in, nobody knows.
I think it'll be okay.
I don't know if I would really blend in. Especially with the shirt I'm wearing today.
Well, when Josh does get to, bigger and better things, I mean, we can all say, remember all the stuff we told about how great you were? And he'll say, what's your name again?
So, no, that's what this recording's for.
Okay, No, he'd never do that.
No,
I'm kind of torn on that because what he is now, his whole why we love him and why so many people love him in the monster fan community is because of his style, the way he is. If he did go on to bigger and better things, I don't even know if he would be able to. I think that would kind of almost like ruin him in a way.
I want nothing but the best for him.
Yes.
Josh, dear friend.
Yeah.
Not just to the podcast, but to me and to you. And a lot of us. And we really love what he does. And House of the Gorgon really... I'm trying to put myself in Josh's shoes, knowing that the Gorgon is his favorite movie of all time. Knowing that he mounted a stage production of it when he was a kid.
Yes.
It's like producing House of the Gorgon would be like the end-of-life goal. It's like, what do you do now?
But no,
but he's 23 years old, is that right?
20. He's going to be 25 in a week, I believe. I think his birthday is June 29th.
That's amazing that he's done so much. I want nothing for the best but the best for him, and I hope he does move on to bigger and better things, but still keeps his Josh.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I remember one of the interviews he's been doing. I can't remember what it was or what. I don't know if it was for a publication or a podcast or something or some website about House of the Gorgon, and they asked him about what he would like to do in the future, and he said, I have no problem just staying in Texas and making my movies my way, and I totally believe that.
Yeah.
That's him. That's his. Hey, would you like to direct this superhero movie that costs $300 million when you have 50 different producers telling you basically what to do, or would you like to have $1,000 and basically make your own movie in 4 days? I know which one he's going to choose.
Sure.
But at the same time, somebody as creative as him, I want him. Not for me personally because I'm like his buddy or anything. It has nothing to do with me. I want people to know how creative he is, and I still don't think people realize, Caroline Munro, Martine Beswick, Veronica Carlson, Christopher Neame. He got all four of them in a film. Okay?
Yep.
Maybe the people here at Monster Bash kind of understand it. But I think kind of even within the monster fan community, I don't think people realize how big that is. And I'm not trying to denigrate other independent filmmakers or, well, he got these people and you didn't. But the fact that he did, I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
See, he started making movies when he was 5.
Yes.
So he spent his entire life kind of gearing up and building up to this. So, I mean, he's worked hard.
Oh, yeah.
These people didn't just fall in his lap. He worked really hard to make all this
once
happen.
again, we're redoing the podcast from yesterday. But there's a reason why. Well, okay. Well, what are we gonna? We're gonna just spend the whole day talking about Joshua Kennedy again?
Man, I tell you,
we got some
we need to get on the payroll is what we need to do.
Exactly.
See, that's why I want him to get bigger and better, so he can pay us all right.
Yeah, I'm already an unofficial employee of Gooey Films. You might as well just make me. I mean, I don't mind making money. Okay, I got nothing against that. Because and what am I going to do with that money? I'm probably going to go to Monster Bash and buy a bunch of Blu-rays and books and DVDs. Right. So I mean, that stuff isn't free.
It's that circle.
Yeah, not for me, anyways. So.
Yeah. So you're here with Josh. You're here for House of the Gorgon, and yes, you're here because it's Monster Bash. But House of the Gorgon is playing tomorrow night.
Twice.
An
extra showing.
Yeah, they had to add an extra showing. There has been so much buzz about this movie.
Yes, and I knew that was going to happen one way or the other.
I can't remember if I mentioned this on the show already, but I flew in with Sam Irvin.
Yeah.
He and I both got stuck at the same airport, not at the same time, but we ended up on the same flight getting here. And that was a concern that he had, is that he wasn't going to get in to see House of the Gorgon. He was talking all about it, how much he loves Josh's work and all that. And he was worried that people are just going to sit down in there in the beginning of the day, stay parked. And not leave.
That's I've done that at other Monster Bashes where I knew, okay, so-and-so is having a Q&A at 3 o'clock. I'm going to get in there at 2 and make sure I have it, because they're really, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody here, but there's really not a lot of room at these, in these viewing rooms. So you kind of have to pick and choose, unless you want to sit way back in the room and not, But I think the two showings, hopefully, and he is, in case anybody is in the area, he is selling, DVDs of it. Josh is right now, and there will be Indiegogo copies available after this weekend.
Good. What else are you looking forward to, though? I mean, it's not all about Josh all the time. It's not Josh Bash.
It isn't. I definitely want to hear Greg Mank. Anytime Greg Mank could talk about refrigerators, and I would listen to Greg Mank talk about refrigerators. If Frank Dell'Ostrito, I'm definitely want to, because he can take a movie that I've seen 100 times, and then he'll talk about it, and I'm like, it's just amazing how he can do that. And his, I'm definitely going to get his book about Carl Denham. That's just going to be a total geek out, just like the Larry Talbot book. The very first Monster Bash I came to was 2013.
Okay.
And I literally didn't know anybody there personally. And now, and I'm not exaggerating, the majority of my Facebook friends are here right now in Monster Bash.
Really
so
reunion.
It's almost like our kind of type of family reunion.
Yeah.
So, and it's really about the only time me and Josh are able to just get together and just hang out and once we're talking about Josh again. that kid, he's just.
He's like an infection. You just can't get rid of a sticky, gooey infection.
Well, are you going to be here through Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you interested in seeing?
The Dell'Ostrito talk. Frank is really good.
Yeah, it just amazes me how he can,
It's inspiring. I mean,
he is.
He inspired a project that I'm working on right now. So.
And I always have great respect for him, because literally the second Monster Bash I went to, this is when I barely knew, really didn't know anybody. I was walking through the dealer room or the showroom or whatever, and I heard somebody calling Dan. I didn't think it was for me. It's like, I don't know anybody here. It was Frank, because he had read my blog. And I just couldn't believe it. This is like when I first started the blog. Like maybe 20 people read it. And I couldn't believe somebody actually that distinguished read my blog and actually knew me. And that kind of scared me, because it's like, you know what? People are actually reading. I might want to be careful when I write things, because this guy actually, it's like just totally out of of the blue. And I'm like, wow, he actually knows
cool,
me.
though. That's
No,
awesome.
it is, but it also makes you realize when you, of course, you know this, when you put things out, you know, as you do, and you, I mean, it's great because people know you from that. It's positive that way, but you also have to realize, hey, there are people out there that are going to read this, so, you know.
So, speaking of which, what's the name of your blog?
The Hitless Wonder Movie blog.
Okay, and I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, of course.
Okay.
Gotta promote. And one thing that you were doing on your blog after the bash last year is, for a while, you were pulling Classic 5 cards.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I feel bad because I just didn't get around back to, you know.
I wasn't bringing it up to make you feel bad. I was bringing it up because we didn't play the last time you were on the show.
Yeah, I know.
Let's do this. What's your favorite Karloff-Lugosi Universal collaboration?
Ooh, and I just got that set, and Tim Durbin and I watched most of it before we came out here. I love the Black Cat,
Wasn't that the white thing?
but for some reason, well, wait a second here. I got to stop myself. I got to go Son of Frankenstein because okay. I'm so in that Universal box set mood that just came out from Shout Factory, and I'm, you know, of course, Son of Frankenstein isn't on it. I got to go with Son of Frankenstein.
Okay. Fair enough.
Oh, thank you. I've met him 3 times.
What was that?
I am a made man.
Good one. Does he ever?
Actually, one time I met him, and I had written I have a blog called the Hitless Wonder Movie blog, and I wrote like a tribute to him. And I said, "Did you happen to read my blog?" He said, "Are you Dan Day?" Nope.
There you go.
Or you really want him to remember you? Just go on Twitter and complain about the movie he's showing that Saturday night. That drives him nuts. No, he's a good guy. Oh, hi. My name's Dan. Are you gonna watch House of the Gorgon tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to.
Well, I'm in it, so.
But you're in it?
Yeah, don't let that scare you off. I mean, there's other things in the movie, so.
I'm just saying, you're in it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You know I know Josh Kennedy, right? So that's why I'm asking. I might as well use it while I can.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, yeah, Son of Frankenstein.
Yep. So Son of Frankenstein. All right, card number 2. What classic monster movie should be turned into a musical?
Oh, I would automatically say first no, but let me think about this. Because, you know, that Phantom of the Opera thing, where to me, that's not my idea of the Phantom.
Okay.
And I just think that if you did turn any type of like that into a musical, it would be kind of it would be cheesy and it wouldn't live up to. I mean, I don't know. That's a hard one to figure out because just about all of them have been kind of like, you know, sort of turned into musicals or Broadway or.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Although I try not to think about the creature from the Black Lagoon rocking show at Universal. I try not to think about that.
It might happen the way things are going.
Yeah. Any Hammer film come to mind?
As a musical?
The Gorgon, maybe?
Well, you know, I'm surprised he hasn't done that already. Well, you could do Dracula 8072 and just have Stoneground write
God,
5 more. Honestly, you think so?
I would love to see that.
Really?
I would. I love that movie.
Well, I do too.
And I love that sequence. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm in.
You'd have to use like other like late 60s, early 70s songs.
That only had like one album. Yeah, pretty much. That would be awesome.
Well, yeah, that's why the musical rights wouldn't be too high if you use like the one-hit wonders. So, you know.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm actually proud of myself that I came up with that. I didn't think I was going to get up with one, so okay.
All right, how about this one? Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits?
Oh, Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Where I grew up in northern Indiana, Twilight Zone was on constantly on all the channels. Outer Limits was almost never. I really haven't seen too many Outer Limits shows.
Okay.
A lot of syndicated shows. It depends on where you grew up in the country, what shows you were. I mean, there's a lot of shows, famous shows that I never saw because, you know, for whatever reason, in where I was at, the local stations didn't have them.
Okay.
But the Twilight Zone was, and I love the Twilight Zone anyway. I have like the old DVD box set, and that's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So yeah, I got to go Twilight Zone.
Okay. Question number 4: what's your favorite Boris Karloff role?
Well, I wrote a blog on this. My favorite Karloff performances. I'm trying to remember actually what I wrote. I'm pretty sure it was probably the Frankenstein monster.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and give you the top 5. I think I can remember the top 5. It was the Frankenstein monster, Captain Gray from Body Snatchers.
Oh, okay, cool.
The Mummy, Ardif Bey, and this is going to be like an out of left field one. I believe is Dr. Bolton from the Doctor of the Seven Dials, Corridors of Blood.
Oh,
which I think is actually one of his better performances. That's one that doesn't get kind of like mentioned.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Really? No, it's an excellent. It's one of those Baker Berman type of movies. It's more of a historical melodrama instead of a straight horror film, but it's very good. And Christopher Lee is great as Resurrection Joe. And I'm trying to think of the 5th Karloff performance that I picked, and I can't think of it to save my life. So
we'll come back to it.
But it definitely the Frankenstein monster. I know that's a generic answer, but
there's a reason why it's iconic, though.
Yeah, exactly, and it still holds up today.
Yeah.
So,
all right, final card of the Classic 5 for you: Hitchcock or William Castle?
I got to go with Hitchcock.
Hitchcock.
I mean, I love William Castle, but I mean, Hitchcock is Hitchcock, and William Castle is like, I don't know. Hitchcock is a gourmet meal. William Castle is, I got to get a cheeseburger. So, but they're both enjoyable in their own ways. So,
although Hitchcock never gave out little plastic hatchets and and all this other stuff, but yeah.
You know what's funny about the William Castle films?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with supernatural. It's money. In every movie, it's about somebody trying to get some money. And you always see him in the suit and the tie. I mean, he was so much of the typical white guy, Mr. Businessman, 1950s. If you really want to examine William Castle's films, it's not so much about the gimmicks. It's about the money. But anyway, I'm going off this bizarre tangent here. But
well, that was the Classic. We finally got a game in.
Yeah, and Tim, you got to do it with Tim Durbin.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
And have you done it with Josh yet?
Not yet, but we will.
Okay.
We'll get him.
Yeah.
Josh is a busy guy.
Yeah, I know.
And here we go again, talking about Josh. Yeah, you sit down in front of the microphone. I'm going to hit record, Steve.
Uh-oh.
You know how this works.
I guess I do, although usually I don't actually get to see you when we're talking.
Stephen D. Sullivan at the Bash. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Actually got a good night's sleep, though I'm an hour behind because we're in the East and I'm in the Midwest, and so I think it's, 11 o'clock, 11:30 now?
I have no sympathy. I'm from Portland.
Right, yeah.
I'm on the other side of the country.
So you're on 3 hours off.
That's
So
right.
it's, 8 o'clock there, 9 o'clock?
I don't even know. I lost track. What, is today Friday?
Apparently it is.
So the Bash, kind of, sort of, it's been like a soft start, I guess is how you'd put it. The movies are going. The dealer's room's not open yet. The guests of honor haven't really set up their tables or doing their thing yet, but we're here, man.
You're here, and you're right at the opening to the entire convention.
That's right. So what are you looking forward to at the Bash the most?
Well, obviously, we're looking forward to House of Gorgon.
Okay.
With with Josh and the stars and hearing them talk about it, and they just announced in the other room that they are expecting overflow crowds for that, so they're actually adding a second show.
So it's a done deal. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Awesome.
Ron announced the second show was going to happen during the same time they're playing the Revenge of the Creature, I think, in the drive-in movie outside.
Excellent news.
So yeah, that's good. I'm a little concerned about getting in because that's one of only 2 things that my wife wants to see.
Okay, what's the other one?
Well, actually 3. She's going to see. We're going to watch the Gorgon in a couple of minutes.
Oh,
the original Gorgon is playing in less than half an hour at this point.
So we know where Josh is.
Yeah, one to assume he might be there, and if you don't know Josh, you can find it by his top hat.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, Gorgon's his favorite film. So.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. We talked about it a little bit when we did the Reptile on Monster Kid Radio. Some crazy show named Monster Kid Radio.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know either, so... I don't know. There's some backwater. I don't know. MKR, isn't that a drug company?
It should. We should have some merch.
Right, there you go. Drugs for Monster Kids. Yeah, I wore my Monster Kid Radio shirt last night.
I saw it.
Just to arrive. It's from the previous printer, so a little tight, and the paint is fading, which is why you switched. So.
That's right.
But people who were here early got to see that. And,
awesome.
They can get good ones at TeePublic, which
there you go.
I've heard is having a sale right now.
Oh, okay.
This morning I saw 35% off, at least on some stuff. So Who knows? By the time you hear this, it may be there, may be gone.
Who knows? So, are you here all weekend?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, both my wife and I are here all weekend. This is my second Bash, her first.
Okay.
And she's more of a sci-fi kid, though. She's read almost everything Stephen King has ever written.
Okay.
So her horror creds are pretty good. But monsters, not so much.
Well, she's married to a monster kid, so I mean, that counts for something.
Right. My wife the other thing she wants to see is she wants to see Boris Karloff as Fu Manchu, which is a terrific movie and very politically incorrect nowadays.
The whole... Yeah. We had Boris Karloff. I think Lugosi played him once. Christopher Lee played Fu Manchu.
Yeah, more than once.
Yeah.
Five, 6 times?
Yeah, it's not really something you'd see happen now.
Right. No, but no one's doing Fu Manchu at all at this point. So, there was a Fu Manchu TV series, of course.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things. Obviously, the whole yellow peril is kind of out of fashion now. So,
and rightly so.
And rightly so, yeah.
But, yeah.
But Boris's Fu he's kind of a delight. And
we can go into these things knowing that, come on. I mean, we know not really cool to be doing the yellow face thing and the peril, but,
Not anymore, but these movies are close to 75 years old.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
I love Christopher Lee's my favorite Fu Manchu of that batch.
Oh, sure.
I really like what he does.
The first 2 or 3 films he's in are just terrific.
Yeah. I mean, he can go to like Peter Lorre doing Mr. Moto and all these others, and
and Warner Roland, and I mean, there's a very, very good Charlie Chan. Both the Charlie Chan actors were white guys, but I loved Charlie Chan growing up and stuff. And maybe it's because I'm not of Asian descent, but you got to take things in the time in which they were made.
Exactly. You know what I'm doing?
Are you doing the Classic 5 on me here live?
Always, man.
Oh, man.
Everybody that sits down, I'm going to bust the cards out on them.
I was going to bring my deck, but I forgot. It was the one thing I forgot that I meant to bring.
Well, lucky for you, I have some for sale. If you want to buy another deck,
I could buy another deck. Do you have a deck I don't have? That's the real question.
I don't.
There will be another deck soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just didn't get my act together in time. All right, here we go. Card number 1. Who's your favorite mad scientist?
Oh, I had a good answer for this and I've forgotten it.
Mine has changed recently, so...
Yeah, I mean, Pretorius is kind of the obvious... I had a good answer for this last time I heard it asked on the show, and I can't remember who it was. Who's your recent convert?
Rotving from Metropolis.
That's the one?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Rotwang is...
However you pronounce it. I don't know. It's a silent film.
It's probably Vong. Rotvang.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no. That's the one I changed to. Because someone else brought it up in your Metropolis cast, and I was like, he's seriously the coolest mad scientist
you see
everywhere.
That? Goosebumps thinking about it.
Oh my God.
Literally.
Yes.
I love that film so much.
It's like prickling up on his forearm.
Right.
So it's really kind of creepy.
Seriously. All right.
It's not a full moon, is it?
Card number 2. Hammer horror or Hammer sci-fi?
As much as I like Hammer sci-fi, and I do. The Quatermass in the Pit being a serious favorite sci-fi film. Hammer horror.
Yeah.
It's Dracula. Yeah, it's Frankenstein, but especially Dracula.
The breadth of what's available in that. I mean, there's just so much.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
Like one of the best, Captain Kronos.
Captain Kronos. Not a bad film. Could have made a great series.
I only say that because Scott and Dominique are sitting here. They don't like the film because they don't know any better. All right,
it's not one of my favorites, actually. I keep wanting to rewrite it. As a writer, there's stuff like, there's so much potential there. Why didn't you do...
It could have been so much, It
could have been better.
It could have been.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with that.
Dominique agrees if you can't hear her on the microphone.
I wonder if maybe it was done like during the 60s, if it would have been...
Honestly, I think if it had come during the classic Hammer period, it would have been a better film.
Yeah.
So, and that's no offense to anyone working on it or in it or anything.
Right.
It's like, but the elements of Kronos are all, for me, much cooler than the final assemblage of the film.
I will give you that. Give you that. All right. I think I'm going to predict the answer in this one.
Ooh, okay.
Just because I know of your work. What's your favorite black and white zombie film?
It's probably White Zombie.
That's what I was going to guess. That's what I was going to guess.
Well, I did kind of write a book about it. So
okay, we got everything has to stop right now. Because the man is walking by the table
in the top hat, and he has to step over to the mic so people can at least hear him.
The voice.
Hello.
That was the voice, the quiet voice of Joshua Kennedy's top hat.
That's Josh walking by with Dan and Tim. All three I hope to get on the podcast this weekend.
Yeah. Are you going to be seeing the Gorgon in the...
I've never seen it before, so I'm really excited.
You might like it. I mean...
I know. My wife's in there waiting for it to start, so...
Oh, yeah?
That was Joshua Kennedy. He's brought many stars with him this year.
That's right.
To premiere
That's right.
House of the Gorgon, which we talked about briefly.
So, favorite black and white zombie movie. I was going to pick White Zombie because I know you did the novelization of it.
Yep. Yeah, and I love that film.
Very, very, very well done.
I walked with a zombie, maybe kind of close second, at least right off the top of my head.
I love White Zombie, and of course Night of the Living Dead, but White Zombie.
Yeah, Night of the Living Dead's very good. A terrific film. And
I'd probably go, White Zombie,
White Zombie, I mean, it's got its flaws because it is of its time, but considering they had no money to work with, they get a great Bela Lugosi performance and a lot of creepy stuff, and it's just a really cool film. It's fighting way above its weight class.
So I'm being prompted here. This is how you can tell I'm not 100% on all cylinders. It's a really great black and white zombie movie, of which there's a podcast being produced right now about. That's right.
Would that be Plan 9?
Plan 9 from Outer Space, man. Plan9by9.com. Check it out.
Plan 9x9.
All right. Here's another Hammer card for you, Steve. What's your favorite Hammer film monster design?
Hammer film monster design. Ooh, okay. That's tricky. Should I say the grasshopper creatures from Quatermass in the Pit? That's really strong. I like that a lot. I've kind of discount all the vampires because they're not really monster designs.
They didn't do much. Yeah.
Just adding teeth and either big robes or diaphanous gowns. That's not much of a design. I do like the Christopher Lee Frankenstein quite a lot, but the grasshopper creatures are really kind of creepy and
They
cool.
are very cool.
And that's what pops into my head, so I'll go with it.
I really like the Oliver Reed Wolfman.
Oh, yeah. That is a really good Wolfman design. You're right.
I wanted more of it. And
yeah.
It's...
And their mummies are not bad, too.
The mummies are okay.
Honestly, they're monsters for me compared to the Jack Pierce makeups, and the Jack Pierce makeups are
they're tough.
Better. No offense to Hammer.
I've never seen this written or confirmed anywhere, but I'm pretty sure the Wolfman from Curse of the Werewolf influenced the Wolfman from the Monster Squad. I see,
sure, yeah.
I see some connections there, right down to the white shirt with the cuffs still intact, but the sleeves ripped out.
Right. And there may be some Naschy influence, too, there.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And vice versa. I mean, I'm sure Naschy saw that as well for his Wolfman.
Wow, we got another Hammer card, man. They're all stuck in the deck.
This must be in honor of all the Hammer stars.
It's in the air, man.
Who are here.
Not counting the original, what's your favorite Hammer Dracula film? And it's okay if you don't say Brides of Dracula.
No, it's the second one. It's not going to be Brides of Dracula because Dracula's not in Brides of Dracula. And we've had that debate before.
I know.
It's going to be, is it the second one is Dracula, Prince of Darkness?
Is Prince of Darkness the third Dracula, the second Christopher Lee Dracula film?
Prince of Darkness, the second one? It's the one where they resurrect him, which I really, really like. But then the one that Veronica Carlson's in, the third one, I really, really like too.
And that's Taste the Blood of Dracula.
That's
right?
Taste the... No. Taste the Blood's the one with Ralph Bates.
And and Ralph Bates is not Veronica Carlson.
Right, no. not for me, anyway. All right, you experts, you're all sitting here. What are the names? There's Dracula, Prince of
Josh and ask him.
It's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, and then Dracula is risen from the grave.
If only
That's
we
it.
had something we could look it up on.
If only we had some magical device that everyone carries in their pocket that has all the knowledge of the world in it. But I'm pretty sure it's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, the second one, and the third one.
We are
Dracula
so bad. How are we getting this so wrong? We should know this, man.
It's, Friday morning and some of us drove or flew 8 hours or more. So that's how.
I think Scott's looking it up on his phone.
Scott's looking it up. He's going to come to our rescue here.
Are you not looking anything up?
I can't.
I thought that's what you were doing. I'm so sorry.
Oh, he's just looking at his phone for other things while we're doing this.
Okay. Well, I have my phone.
All right. Are you going to look it up? I'm telling you, it's Dracula, Prince of Darkness. And then it's Dracula's risen from the grave.
They do kind of get
and then
fuzzy
it's
for me.
Taste the Blood of Dracula, I think.
They all the Dracula
He'll
films. The Dracula films.
Bring Christopher
and
Page over here. He'll know.
Yeah, the Dracula films and Universal's Mummy films. I always get.
Oh, the Universal Mummy films. I always get them scrambled.
Hand, Tomb, Shadow. Whatever.
Yeah, I always get the titles scrambled. It's like I know which ones they are, but I can't remember which title goes with which one. So. Since we're right here in the opening of this thing, people are just wandering by, all sorts of interesting people. So that Christopher Page
Yeah,
wandered
interesting
by.
people and Christopher Page.
Yeah.
He didn't hear that.
Some near people. And Christopher Page. Anyway, was that 5? Did we have 5? Are we?
Prince of Darkness is the third one.
Prince of Darkness is the third.
It's the second Dracula movie.
Okay.
Brides is the second vampire movie, but has no Dracula in it.
Okay.
So this debate will continue. I love Brides. I think Brides is a great vampire film, but it's not a Dracula film. And you asked about Dracula, so there you go.
But it's not... The word Dracula in the title is merely a descriptive. It's not saying Dracula's in it. It's saying like it's the brides of Dracula. That's the descripptor. You're a writer. You know how these things work.
I'm willing to go with that, but you did ask what my favorite.
Well, but
I'm with Scott. Brides of the Vampire.
Hello again.
Good morning. Celebrity guest wandering by. Anyway, it's Dracula, Prince of Darkness.
Okay.
Followed very closely by Taste the Blood of Dracula.
Where does Scars
I
of
love both
Dracula
those.
fall for you?
I actually like it better than a lot of people do.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, it's got a lot of cool stuff.
Back when we were doing 1951 Down Place, that's when I was really excited about Scott seeing. It's odd.
Yeah, it's odd. It's hard to see that it doesn't kind of have a traditional hero in it. It's got a little more sadism than usual. Derek's phone is telling him he's supposed to take his meds now.
No.
Or he's warning him that the Gorgon is about to start, and shouldn't you really be seeing the Gorgon?
I've seen the Gorgon so many times, man. Besides, if I see it too much, I'll turn to stone.
Right.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you get to the Gorgon. Thank you, Steve. I'm sure we'll chat again.
Was that 5? Did we do 5?
That was what you want to do, a 6,
my
just
God.
in case?
Sure, I'll do one more if
For
you want.
safety. Oh. Who else could have or should have played a mad scientist? Can we bring it back around?
Oh, no. Well, that's really tricky because the ones you think of are the ones that
have already done it.
Already done it. You know, you think of Boris, you think of Bela, you think of Vincent Price, you think of
Price, Carradine's done it.
Christopher Lee didn't do many mad scientists. He did Jekyll once. Does that count?
Was he? But he wasn't actually Dr. Jekyll, though, was he?
I think he was in the one Dr. Jekyll film, which isn't
really. It's the one that he did for Amicus.
Right. Yeah, it's the Amicus one.
I Monster.
I Monster. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was groping for the name too, so maybe that qualifies.
Yeah,
Gosh,
I mean,
this
all the
should be
faces that I'm going to, Donald Pleasance has done it.
The trickiest thing is someone that you would really love to see do it that hasn't really done it, and right now I'm drawing a blank. So I guess we'll leave that to the listeners. Who do you think should have played a mad scientist that hasn't? I'm going with Christopher Lee because I'm going to say Dr. Jekyll just once. Maybe that doesn't count.
We've never had this guy on the show before, but he's a Monster Bash regular, a mainstay. You can tell because he's wearing the bright orange shirt, trying to compete with my shirt for most attention grabbing. It's Kevin Slick.
Yes.
How you doing, man?
Great. The Monster Bash is happening, and been at the Monster Bash since the very first one.
Wow.
Ron Adams and I actually met when we were in junior high, when we were like 11 and 12 years old, 12, 13, something like that. And we used to, stay up late and watch Veronica Carlson and Dracula's Risen, that sort of thing on the late movie, and read famous monsters of Filmland and listen to old rock and roll records. And now, all these years later, we stay up late watching vampire movies, reading famous monsters, and listening to old rock and roll records. So time never passes, or it just goes around in a circle. I don't know
Something like that. What's this whole growing up thing? I don't understand. Yeah.
Well, it's like one of the times when I came back from the bash, I was telling someone about what I did, what went on, and they made the comment. They said, "It sounds like a lot of people who never grew up." And I said, "No, these are the people who never gave up, never gave up believing in magic, never gave up, the wonder of childhood in all its best ways."
Yeah.
And it's on display here in living color, that's for sure.
You've been with the Bash from the beginning when they were at the other hotel, and now you're here. Has it just continued to grow every year?
Yeah, the first one was at a small hotel in Ligonier, and that's the one that had Forey Ackerman and Bela Jr. and Sarah Karloff and Ron Chaney. all together. We had a birthday party for Forey there. It was when he was 80, I think, in 1997. Yeah.
And he did the stamps then, too.
Yeah, they had the Postal Service had the stamps. Yeah, I think, I don't remember how many people were there, but it wasn't a very big hotel, and it wasn't a very big staff of us either. That was one of the things we often reminisce about is the hotel was right down the street from where Ron lived, so we all stayed at his house, and we only had one staff shirt each, and so we'd go home at night and wash them at like midnight and pull them out of the dryer, and you'd be trying to sleep while the people next to you were, arguing over who had the most authentic portrayal of Dracula or something like that, because there was like 10 people camped out in his living room or something like that. It was Lugosi. No, it was Christopher Lee. Come on.
So that sounds like the best slumber party ever.
It was. They should have made a movie. That was Slumber Party Massacre right there. That would have been it.
Somebody get Josh Kennedy.
Yes, there we go. Well, we do have to tell them about the Val Lewton Mary Poppins idea there.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up, man. So Kevin was here when we were doing the Classic 5 game with Dan, and the what movie do you want to see turned into a musical card came up, and he suggested flipping it.
Yeah.
What musical do you want to see turned into a horror movie? And somehow we ended up with
Mary Poppins, Val Lewton's version of Mary Poppins, because the original Mary Poppins books are actually kind of dark and more intriguing than just the light and happy. And I love the Sherman Brothers songs that they did for Disney. It was wonderful, but just thought that's a film that needs to be shadow laden and probably a small budget to make them force them to come up with some really great scenes there. I don't know what other musicals would be great as flipped. I don't know.
I don't know how you can beat Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I want to see that.
So anybody that that makes movies, just start pitching this idea. Someday we're going to see this.
I know that somebody took Mary Poppins and recut it as a horror movie trailer.
Oh yeah,
have you seen that on YouTube? It's
no,
a few years ago.
I've seen a few of those ones where they do that, where they take
They did it with Mary Poppins, and I mean it's it's fun, but
yeah.
I want
I want it serious. Yes, yeah. I want it seriously done. Yeah, for sure.
Over the years, what are some of your favorite Monster Bash memories?
Well, the first bash was great, partly because it was this crazy idea that Ron had, like, let's do this thing and let's do it. I think when he first pitched the idea, it was less than a year away from when it actually happened. I know he got in touch with Bob Pellegrino, who's another bash guy, and he called me up and he said, "Weren't you in junior high? Weren't you in the projectionist club and ran projectors?" He said, "We're doing this thing and I need people to run 16 millimeter projectors. You know how to do that, right?" I was like, "Sure, okay." And that's the kind of thing that Ron always does, is whenever he's got an interesting idea, we worked in radio together for many years too, he brings in all his friends. He calls all his friends and hey, come do this thing. But the first year, I think the thing that was just most wonderful was meeting Forey Ackerman. He came into the hotel on the first day when we were setting up, and there's Forey just sitting there, and I went and I wanted to thank him because it was through FM that I not only discovered Lon Chaney, but then I discovered that I love silent movies, and that became a lifelong fascination. And so, I said to him, thanked him for that. And anyone who ever spent time with Forey knows he was like a jukebox. It's like when you say something like that to him, it's like you put a quarter in, and then he's like, "Oh, well, look at my ring." And he has this ring and he opens it up and says, "This is a piece of, putty from, makeup from Lon Chaney's makeup box," and then he's like off to the races with stories. And it was just like, this is the greatest thing in the world. That was just so fascinating, so wonderful. And then at that same bash, I remember telling a friend later, or talking to him on the phone, they're like, "Well, what did they said, "Well, I did this and this and this afternoon." What did you do? I said, "Well, I sit next to Bela Lugosi Jr. and watched his father in Dracula this afternoon. Top that." And that was like, it was one of those things where you just look around and you think, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, this is actually going on. I can't believe this.
That's and as a monster kid growing up, I mean, that's got to be like.
And there's so many wonderful guests that have been here over the years, and back again. One time before, when Veronica Carlson was here, I play with the Bash Boys, our little garage band thing, and she and a bunch of the Hammer Girls were there, and they were dancing and having a grand time. And it was like late on Saturday night, and I talked to her afterwards. I said, Ron and I used to stay up late on a Saturday night to watch you on TV, and you're staying up late on a Saturday night to watch me do this crazy stuff. Isn't this a funny world? Isn't it amazing the way that sort of thing goes?
That's amazing. And one of the things that I like about all the guests that come in is that they're just people.
Yeah.
You talk about Veronica Carlson. She's a sweetheart.
She is, and she's so thoughtful and interesting. She told one time, maybe I asked her in one of the Q&As about how she got started, and she had this lovely story about playing the Virgin Mary in a Christmas play, and then being sort of disappointed to learn that she wasn't actually the star of the play. It was the baby that everyone was there for. It's like, well, let's rewrite this thing then, because I should have been the star of that one. And there's so many of the folks here are just really nice. And I think part of that comes from the way Ron has set up the bash. I know some conventions are much faster paced and maybe some bigger, more modern stars and things like that. It gets kind of crazy, but the emphasis here is always on being friendly, being nice to people, people come and have a nice time.
We're talking about this guy here.
He is.
The main thing here is no one is friendly.
Don't trust anybody, says Ron Adams. Yes, right there.
It is a real friendly convention. I love the people here, the people that I've had a chance to meet over the years. I've never had a bad experience with anybody here. And it's wonderful. And part of it's the staff. I mean, you guys do an amazing job. You're doing Godzilla's work. And you're just really knocking it out. You guys set up and I don't go more than a few minutes without seeing somebody in an orange shirt asking somebody else if they need anything.
Yeah.
Everybody's just so friendly and willing to help out. You play with the Bash Boys. Is that your primary thing over the weekend? I'm
filming a lot of what's going on because we like to put out a DVD each year of sort of the highlights of the show. Sure. So I'm filming most of the talks and also just sort of the general vibe of what's going on. I like to go around and get video of some of the obscure, interesting little old toys and magazines and things like that and books that people have here. So just to try to give people an idea of what it is that goes on, and why you should come here to Mars, PA.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm younger than you.
Yes.
I grew up in the 80s and such, 70s and 80s and 90s. So I didn't have the experience of growing up with famous monsters. That famous monsters anyway, or watching these movies late on a Saturday night because I could just rent a VHS tape or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to hear these stories, and I'm jealous of you guys for being able to look back and have those experiences, and just it's amazing. And I appreciate people like you and Ron and such sharing those memories and experiences with us through the Bash.
Yeah.
It's just.
There's
something about it, man.
There's certainly charming and wonderful elements about that time of scouring like the TV guide to see what was going to be on. I certainly appreciate a lot of the things that we have now. I like a lot of obscure music, and so I remember at a certain time I was like, if you're looking for this old, folk music record from the 1920s, you're gonna you could go to New York or something like that and see if you could, or you'd hear about somebody that had it and they'd tape it. Whereas now it's like, well, okay, I can
just pop
on my phone here. I'll just Google it and see where it is and find it and do that, which is great. So, and that's great too because a lot more people are. I find that come to the Bash are a lot more literate about these old movies than we ever could have been, because we just had FM was like our total source for it. Now, but you listen to some of the Q&As here, people are asking these questions about, Christopher Neame was in there, they're asking him these questions about, who was the set designer on Dracula 80, 1972, where they were just telling him, oh, yes, you remember this and such a guy and that thing. And it's like, where do you know all this stuff? How do you find all this stuff? But there's, I remember at that time, starting to read FM, and then it was like, oh, you could write Forey a letter, and he'll send you an autographed. It's that drawing cool of him as the monster with the sort of Son of Frankenstein bolts on the head there, and I remember getting that in the mail, and I was like, wow, that's just the coolest thing.
That is awesome.
And so maybe that was probably a special time that maybe isn't I don't know, maybe things are just too fast paced now. Because I remember at that same time we were into comic books like a lot of us. I remember writing Stan Lee a letter about some, thing that I'd read and getting a response, it was typed, but it's signed by him, and it was
so
funny.
Cool.
And who has time to do that now? I don't know.
Earlier you mentioned silent film.
Yeah.
I've liked a few silent movies over the years, but recently I've really started to appreciate them in watching more than just the horror stuff. Of course, I watch Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback and all these, but when we talked about Metropolis on the show not too long ago, it kind of opened up a door for me, and now I'm just enjoying everything I see. What are some of your favorite silent films?
Sunrise is probably one of my favorites. It won, actually, in the first year for the Academy Awards, they gave out more than one Best Picture award that year. I think Wings also won. But Sunrise, which is F.W. Murnau. Made it in Hollywood. I guess he had come to Hollywood and made some films and died very young. I think in an accident of some sort. I like Intolerance, which was
so good.
D.W. Griffith's sort of follow-up, as it were, to Birth of a Nation, and perhaps his attempt to redeem himself a bit from that. Way Down East, with Lillian Gish and Richard Barthelmess. It's one that, and a lot of these films have, Sunrise is one that to me is just like gorgeous from start to finish. Way Down East is one of these ones that has sort of a comic scene in the middle, or where they have a character that's kind of the comic relief, but it's played so broadly it kind of distracts from the otherwise serious and engaging film. Any of Chaney's things, Laugh Clown Laugh is He Who Gets Slapped is a favorite. The Penalty, oh my goodness, The Penalty that's still frightening. I think it's still intense. Some of his ones where he's kind of a gangster. I've done a few of the films at the Bash here, playing the music for them, and then some of them have been put out on DVD. Alpha released some. They did use my version of Cat and Canary. But they also used a score of mine for Outside the Law, which is a Chaney film, and that's a pretty captivating one because he's a gangster, and he's really there's one scene that's like so perfect for his character. He and his friends are at a restaurant, and they're plotting whatever the thing is they're going to do, and they're leaving, and the one guy puts down a tip, and before Chaney leaves, his character just kind of looks side to side and grabs the tip and sticks it in his pocket and leaves. And it's like these beautiful little moments like that. That's part of what I think what makes silent movies for me captivating, is because you really have to pay attention. You have to watch them really closely because it's all being told with what's happening there.
It does take a different mindset or approach.
Faust is a great one. Have you ever seen
that
Faust?
one I have seen.
Yeah,
that one I have seen. And like I said, I've seen the genre stuff, Phantom, and I love Nosferatu. I love that, and the Golem's one of my favorites. But some of the non-genre stuff, or a little bit more off from that beaten path.
We're still not friendly.
That I really enjoy. And Josh Kennedy actually recommended me watch a movie called Napoleon. I guess it's like 5 hours long.
Oh my goodness, that Abel Gance.
Is it good?
Oh yes, it's incredible. Yeah, there's early silence, like Broken Blossoms with Lillian Gish is a powerful, powerful movie. And Napoleon is in what I consider like later era silence. Like some of Greta Garbo's films, like Flesh and the Devil is a fascinating one where she's just a really horrible person. The Mysterious Lady is another excellent one where it's a good drama. Those are later era silence, and you see the film quality in some of those is just so captivating because they weren't tied down as they would be a few years later with having to have everyone near a microphone. And the cinematic art had developed such that they made some of these really wonderful, huge, epic films. It was like the imagination was completely unbridled, and they were just able to work with whatever. And I think they developed audiences to sort of like follow along with this. I'm going to show you something, and this means this. This is what I'm telling you in the story, and you understand this. I don't need to belabor it, but I can do these wonderful kind of shots and really atmospheric kinds of things. So
right on. Yeah, I need to watch more. I need to watch more silent film.
That's always a great thing. And if you can see them with, there's some wonderful orchestras out there. The Mount Alto Orchestra, for example, is one that does some wonderful live performances. Mm-hmm. That's great. I think, I heartily encourage everyone to go check it out. But it's worth having the caveat that it takes some concentration. It's like telling someone, oh, you really need to go read Edgar Allan Poe. And it's like, well, if you're not familiar with the language and the writing of that era, you need a little kind of guide as to...
It's a different approach. And I mean, I find that even with the classic monster movies that we love so much, sometimes it's a slightly different approach. And, sometimes it's a hard sell to get my wife to watch some of this stuff because she's not into it the way I am. So.
And speaking of the silence, the one that we showed last year at the Bash that Josh Kennedy made.
Oh yeah, the St. Augustine Monster.
Yeah, that had just every element of like his eye. He's a smart guy.
Here we go again.
And I'm not getting any money for this, but he's. When I watched that, I thought, this is a guy that's really paid attention to the way silent movies look and feel, and the editing, and just the look of it, even the lighting and things like that.
The acting style.
The acting style.
The makeup. I mean,
right. There's a certain look about it and thing about it that, it's kind of like, well, you mentioned musicals. Like, you think about musicals, what a weird thing that, like, there's a storyline where people walk around and they all of a sudden start singing. What's that about? Yeah. But you have, you get into it and you believe it and then you love it. So,
yeah.
A good way.
Well, no appearance on Monster Kid Radio would be complete without playing a round of the Classic Five.
Excellent.
So, Kevin, let's do this here. Okay. Card number 1. Which do you prefer, the Munsters or the Addams Family?
The Munsters when I was a kid, for sure. And I think that was partly because they were on the TV channel that came in clearer in my house. But over time, the Addams Family, I think because the humor is a little more sardonic and dark in it. So it was once the Munsters, but the Addams Family has won out.
Okay. This is actually from our Universal expansion.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Which movie do you prefer, Dracula's Daughter or Son of Dracula?
Wow. They're both, I love them both. I might go with Son of Dracula, partly because it seems like that film has never often had like a lot of love. But I think Lon Chaney Jr. is a pretty commanding vampire.
Yes.
And I mean, he's big, and there's that one scene where the guy comes to investigate and he's like, now I am the master, and the guy like, what are you doing here? I too wondered about that noise in the base. And he's so sly, and it's like, it's like, you're a dead man, because Lon's got your number. He knows what's going on.
I do love them both too, but I do think Son of Dracula gets a lot of unneeded criticism or hate. He does just fine. And Evil and Anchors is in that too, right? I mean,
yes.
And you can never go wrong with Evil and Anchors.
Exactly.
Ever.
Exactly.
All right, card number 3. The Amazing Colossal Man or Attack of the 50-Foot Woman?
I would go with the 50-Foot Woman, again, partly because, how often do we get to see a woman monster get in there and, like, kick some butt and,
good point.
So, yeah, I think that one, and maybe it's like the movie posters and such for that, or some of I remember seeing the photos in FM and things, and they just somehow seem more iconic to me, like, oh yeah, I remember that's the one.
Fair enough. All right, this is a Monster Bash exclusive deck that I created last year.
Excellent.
What 2 classic science fiction movies would make the perfect double feature?
I might be inclined to go with, let's see, for a double feature of ones. Gosh. Of course, The Day the Earth Stood Still was the first one that comes to mind. It's just like, what a great film that would be. But then, so maybe would I take one that's got like a more serious quality to that and then combine it with, It Came from Outer Space, or would I combine it with This Island Earth, which are ones that strike me as a little more fun, and they've got a little more, they're not quite as thoughtful and like message laden as that. That might be what I want. Give me the deep film and then the palate cleanser, because like the mutants in this, that's great. I love that. I love everything about that film, and I love that it's also not a super serious film, although fine acting and fine story and music. It's got all kinds of wonderful points on it and at all levels. So I'll go with that.
All right, final card, final question. Oh, God. Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing?
Wow. Well, I'll go with Christopher Lee on that, and just I'm just going with like the first thing that pops into my mind. One of the things that I loved about watching Christopher Lee in the films was just his physical presence. I know there's one scene, and I can't remember which Dracula it is, but there's one where he's is like stalking out of the castle, and his cape is flared out behind him, and it's like, this guy could kick your butt. I mean, let alone like Tony November, he could like beat the living daylights out of you, because he is like a commanding guy. And that climactic scene where he fights Cushing, and Cushing, okay, yeah, he pulls the drapes down. Yeah, good, great move. That was cool. I appreciate it, but he would have kicked your butt otherwise. If the windows hadn't been there, Christopher Lee would have done it. So,
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually on Team Cushing, but you're right. There is a presence.
Yeah.
Lee just has this presence.
One year when we did Nosferatu here at the Bash, they had me made up as Nosferatu to play the music for it along with it. And so we were, and that was one year when all the Hammer girls were there. And so we did all these pictures of me harassing the Hammer women. And so I said to Veronica Carlson, they're like, well, get in like and bite, like you're going to bite her neck. Get in and bite her neck or something. And so I said, is that okay? Is that all right? And then I kind of joked. I said, well, you've been bitten in the neck before. And she laughed and she goes, yes, but that was Christopher. And he was gorgeous.
That's amazing. I love that.
Like, I got it. As Nosferatu, I am not gorgeous. But
that's amazing. Kevin, thanks for doing this.
Well, thank you.
What, you're playing tomorrow night?
The Bash Boys are playing tonight.
Oh, tonight, that's right.
Yep. And I'll just be roaming around taking pictures all weekend. Thank you for this for your show. It's great. I love it.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Is a podcast a show, or is it like something do you call it a show?
I call it a show.
Okay, then it's a show. I like it. It's a good show.
We're going to do our first recording here at Monster Bash on Saturday with Ron. Is it MacCloskey? Am I saying
MacCloskey, yes, sir.
Excellent. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. Technically, it is the second day of summer, or the first full day of summer.
Oh, is it? Oh, well, there you go. It's a good way to kick it off, right?
And the summer has a lot to do with Frankenstein. Did you know that?
Okay. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay, 1816 in the history books.
Okay.
It's known as the year without a summer.
Okay.
And that's because there was a volcanic eruption. The ash and soot covered most of the planet. It was cold and rainy and damp all year long.
Okay.
Nobody could enjoy themselves. Now, what has that got to do with Frankenstein? Well, that's the same year, 1816, that Mary Shelley and her group decided to go vacation in Geneva.
Nice.
They were going to go out and boat and picnic and hike. Couldn't do anything. They were bored out of their minds. So at one point, one of the groups says, why don't we have a ghostwriting story contest? They did. Everyone thought of one except for Mary Shelley. Until the last night, she had a nightmare. The next day, she told the story, and she won the contest, and that was the beginning of Frankenstein.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you think back to where we are now with Frankenstein and its place in not just the genre circles, but pop culture altogether,
right?
To think that it came from such a, random event,
right?
It's just amazing and astounding, and really speaks to the quality and the longevity,
right,
of what she came up with. We wouldn't be doing all this without her.
Correct. And, it's also, a lot of people get confused on the dates and her age and all that stuff. But just to restate the facts, again, she thought of it in 1816. Her birthday was in August. She technically was 18 years old when she first started writing it.
Wow.
It wasn't published, though, until 1818.
Right.
So it took almost 2 years. But that means last year was the 200th anniversary. It is the most popular horror story of all time. It predates everything, including Jekyll and Hyde, Dracula, Hunchback of Notre Dame, everything. And it's never been out of print. Just an amazing story.
I've read in places, and I can't tell you what source it was, but I have read before that Frankenstein is the most adapted story to film.
Yeah.
That it's been adapted more times than the Bible. It's just insane how crazily Frankenstein has infiltrated what we do and what we love. I love it.
Right. And Frankenstein is the dictionary word. A lot of people don't know that.
Is it in the dictionary? That's
Frankenstein is defined as a creation that overcomes its creator.
I love that so much.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Now, here's the great thing that Mary Shelley did, and I think she did this on purpose. She never described exactly how the monster came to life.
Okay.
So that leaves that open. She never really described in detail what the monster looked like, so that was left open.
That's true.
And that's exactly where Hollywood came in, and in 1931 did an amazing job. And to me, that is the credit to three geniuses. Jack Pierce, the makeup man.
Oh, yeah.
James Whale, the director, and Boris Karloff, the actor. Those three created an image that, as you see, we can't walk through these rooms without seeing that image somewhere.
Right.
You can't walk in any store in October and not see that image.
Yep.
That's how important that movie became.
And I'm sure Universal is very happy about that because they're still making money off it.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, to me, the three traits of a Frankenstein monster look is a flat head, a scar on the face, and then the bolts.
Right.
And if you do those three things, you're trying to do a Frankenstein.
And at least two of those things don't even appear in the original novel. It did not have a flat top. It didn't have bolts in the neck.
That's what I'm saying. And I think Mary Shelley did that on purpose so that you could interpret your own vision of what the monster looked like. Now, your show, which I love because it has the word kids in it, and that's exactly what those movies affected the most, were the kids. In fact, James Warren, who founded Famous Monsters of Filmland, I call him the Hugh Hefner for kids. Because I
love that so much.
He took a void. He took just this great thing that was going on and decided to make a magazine out of that craze, out of those love of monsters. And so many, I'm sure you know the list, but Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all these young filmmakers, as kids, loved these magazines.
Joe Dante, John Landis, all these guys.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to do some rapid fire questions with you about Frankenstein.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, go
Favorite
ahead.
actor to portray the monster?
Is definitely Karloff. And just to let you know how great his performance is, when you look at all the actors that have come after him. You know, years ago when we were growing up, like I'll give you an example, James Bond. You know, you grow up, you see Sean Connery, you go, well, that's it. There's only one actor. Then all of a sudden they put Roger Moore, and then all of a sudden this guy. And now, I don't know, it's maybe up to 8 people that have played the same character. Well, the same thing with Frankenstein. Once Frankenstein was made, I was going to say, okay, who's going to go back and redo that? All the way up to Robert De Niro. People have gone back to do their own interpretation. Hands down, he's the best there was.
Favorite actor to play the Doctor?
Well, now you're going to get me caught up on wordage because I'm a real freak on wordage. But you ready for this?
Okay.
If we go back to the novel, and even if you go back to the film, there never was a Dr. Frankenstein. And you know why? Because he was a medical student that never graduated.
That's right.
Never. It wasn't until Son of Frankenstein that they called him a doctor.
Okay.
But technically, there was never a Dr. Frankenstein. There was never an Igor or a hunchback in the beginning.
That's all from the book.
Correct, yeah, from the book. So sometimes people get real picky on. But anyway, back to your question. I say Colin Clive. Again, he was so wonderful, and it proved how great he was because he played the same character in both films. Bride of Frankenstein as well. Unfortunately, he died way too young, but
he did.
Just good actor.
Yeah. Favorite Frankenstein sequel?
I'm going to have to say Bride because it was not only the performance, which I know, again, a lot of people know Karloff didn't want to speak, but he created just this voice and this wonderful way of portraying it. And the score, the musical score. I don't think you can get a better score than Franz Waxman, who did the score for Bride of Frankenstein.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So good. So if there was a non-Universal Frankenstein film, what would you watch if you had to watch it?
Well, I am very partial to this filmmaker that's still making movies and still wants to remake Frankenstein, and that's Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, man.
He made The Shape of Water, and in my opinion, that was an update version of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I know it's on his bucket list because I interviewed him when I talked to him.
Yeah.
He has said for 20 years his goal is to make Frankenstein, but he's waiting. So I don't know if he's waiting for the right actor, the right time, or whatever, but I would definitely be anxious. And I'm one of these people, too. When some people make a film, a lot of people will go out and say, okay, a new Frankenstein film. They come back, no, that was stupid. They wasted time. They wasted money. I applaud them. Listen, if somebody wants to go and tell the story again and do their own take and spend their own money, go ahead. Like this last one, I think the most recent one was Victor Frankenstein.
With Aaron Eckhart, right?
Yeah.
No, that was I, Frankenstein. Was it Victor Frankenstein with Daniel Radcliffe?
Yes,
and,
yes. I think it was first going to be called Igor.
Yeah.
And then I think people thought nobody's going to know who that is.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. It was great. I loved Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. What Kenneth Branagh did.
I love the music in that. Patrick Doyle's score in that film it transcends everything. I love that. It's probably my second favorite Frankenstein score, right after Franz Waxman.
Oh,
because
okay.
Waxman's music is beautiful, but Patrick Doyle's Frankenstein score from the 94, is that when that came out?
Yes.
Yeah, that score is
I'll tell you a
gorgeous.
score that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about Frankenstein films. Young Frankenstein. The music in that is just beautiful.
Is that John Morris?
Yes, who just died recently. Very
Yeah.
good. Boy, you know your music stuff.
I love my film scores. I collect them. So,
So do you agree? John Morris.
John
Great
Morris's stuff is really good. It's phenomenal stuff. So if you had to pick a favorite score, then would it be Bride or would you go?
It would have to be Bride.
Okay.
Although, again, John Morris, what he did was just fabulous. Great stuff.
Going back to Del Toro doing Frankenstein, I'd love to see him do it, teaming up with Doug Jones.
Yeah.
I think Doug Jones would be an amazing Frankenstein monster. Just the way he's able to move his body would be phenomenal.
Okay. See, now I think Michael, is it Stratton?
Oh.
He was in Shape of Water, right?
Yeah.
His build and his face.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, he's the guy. He's the guy. As long as they don't do him before he gets too old. But he's the guy.
Yeah.
And he's on Broadway right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, you know a lot about Frankenstein because you're working on a documentary.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
I started as a child just falling in love with Boris Karloff from Frankenstein. And in 1997, I decided to get my camera, go to a few of these conventions, start interviewing people, which I did. And just an inspiration, because I'm in show business myself. I'm a writer, producer, director, although my bent has always been more towards comedy as opposed to a serious actor. But if you want to take a look at somebody who can inspire a person, it's got to be Boris Karloff. I mean, he was 44 before Frankenstein. He should have given up long ago. He should have said, look, I'm never going to make it. I'm only going to get this far. I'll do something else. But he didn't. And he just kept working. And not only that, his career grew as show business grew. He went from film, he did radio, he did live television, real television, Broadway, nominated for a Tony, won the Grammy. It's phenomenal what this man did. Look at these three things he did in his lifetime, which I don't think anybody can top. First of all, The Monster in Frankenstein. He debuted on Broadway in a role written just for him in Arsenic and Old Lace, and then How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So in one career, when you can get those three things, it's amazing. So I've had a chance to team with a filmmaker in London called Thomas Hamilton.
Okay.
We formed a partnership last June. We have gone and we have interviewed Norman Jewison, Christopher Plummer, Lee Grant, Guillermo del Toro, John Landis, Orson Bean, just some amazing people. Peter Asher. I don't know. Do you know Peter Asher if you know music?
I feel like I should, but
He
it's
was
still pretty
Peter
early.
of Peter and Gordon.
Oh, okay.
But he was a child actor,
Okay.
and he worked with Karloff when he was a child. Then Peter Asher became a producer. He worked for Apple Records. In fact, he dated Paul McCartney's sister in A World Without Love, that Peter Gordon hit.
Okay.
That's a Paul McCartney song.
Okay.
So he's into the music business, but he has this background of being a child actor as well. So just some great people. And I'm here this weekend to interview Sharon Moffat, because Sharon was a child actor that played with Karloff in The Body Snatcher. I'm here to interview Greg Mank, who's written some wonderful books, Tom Weaver, who's written some wonderful books. So get a little bit more background on Karloff.
Yeah, all the names that you've mentioned, phenomenal people. I've chatted with them before myself.
Right.
Tom and Greg, so knowledgeable and so willing to share that knowledge.
Yeah.
So good luck with the interviews. I'm sure they're
you.
going to be amazing.
Thank you very much for giving me this time to talk about this. And it's just a passion I have. Cross my fingers this will be out in 2020.
So where can people learn more about it? Is there a website set up?
Well, there's an actual title. It's called Boris Karloff, The Man Behind the Monster.
Okay.
So if you go to IMDb, you'll find it there.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's a Facebook page set up as well. In fact, for a while we had a Kickstarter campaign, and that's where we got our first funding from it. So so it's out there and people can find out about it.
Will it be a feature length?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
And full on, it won't be like a web series or something. It's like a feature length film.
Okay, you bring up a great question. We're at the point where once the film is done, we now have to market and sell it. Okay. So it depends on who buys it. So if a Netflix buys it and says they want to make it a 6-part miniseries, fine with me. If Universal buys it and says, no, we want to release it as a feature-length film, then fine with me. This man, his career is so fast. It's hard to keep it to a 2-hour. It's possible, but to really enjoy and understand this man and his career, it should be like a 6-part series.
Yeah, the man's career is amazing. I wish you the best of luck with the documentary. We actually have chatted before the bash.
Right.
Please keep me posted.
Okay.
I want to know more about it as the movie continues. You gave me a card yesterday, so
Okay.
I would love to learn more about the documentary as it goes along, man.
All right, Derek.
I wish you the best. Have a good rest of your bash.
Okay, thanks. All right,
Thanks, Ron.
bye-bye.
I see you marrying a corpse, living in a grave.
The vampire can assume very many different forms at will. Sometimes it appears as a bat, and sometimes as a small cloud of swirling vapor. In this way, it can move unseen among its enemies.
Son of Dracula, searing the screen with new terror in this weird tale of the living dead who rise from the grave at night to prey on unsuspecting victims. With Louise Albritton, Robert Page, Evelyn Ankers, Frank Craven, J. Edward Bromberg, and Lon Chaney as the new Count Dracula, you'll shudder at the screen's most fascinating woman vampire, luring men with cold beauty and the promise of immortality.
Count Alucard is immortal. Through him, I attained immortality. Through me, you will do the same.
History of horror pictures, nothing so shocking on the screen. Corridors of blood.
Mr. Bolton, the committee have decided against holding any further demonstrations.
I tell you, I must have those chemicals. A bargain's a bargain, eh, Doctor? You keep your end of it, and I'll keep mine.
Corridors of Blood, starring Boris Karloff. Genius or madman? Betta St. John, drawn into the deadly vortex. Finley Curry, who believed at first. Christopher Lee, the killer known as Resurrection Joe.
I can't sign that. I don't know how he died. It's a favor for a favor, Doctor. You want your book? Hospitals want bodies.
And you take shock after shock after shock. Don't hold in your terror. Shriek if you must. A Nervorama shocker. This picture is not for timid souls.
I should have said something earlier. The recording with Dan, when we were recording and somebody came up and it sounded like the conversation changed a little bit, it's because somebody walked by who was wearing a Svengoolie t-shirt. And if I remember right, I think Dan was also wearing a Svengoolie t-shirt. So they started talking back and forth. And that's what that was. I thought it was kind of adorable because it was a younger person, a girl who had come by. And, well, I just thought it was cool that Dan and she had this connection over Svengoolie. And then I also thought it was kind of funny because he was kind of rubbing it in. And then the whole, I'm a made man thing. But yeah, that's what happened there. Now, I have the rest of Saturday's recordings and Sunday's recordings and the recording from Frank Dell'Ostrito and the recording of, well, who knows what else. I've got so much to go through still. And I think we're going to have Monster Bash related content over the next few weeks before we get back to, well, what passes for normal around here at Monster Kid Radio. One thing that is normal for us is to have the Monster Rally Retro Awards running, so make sure you head over to tinyurl.com/rallies 2019, and you can cast your vote in the Rally Awards this year, where you can vote for the best actor, actress, director, movie, and monster of the films from 1935, 45, and 55. The deadline for this ballot is July 11th. But Derek, what happened to the Monster Movie Madness Tournament 2019? Well, Steve Turek and I did record at Monster Bash the announcement of who won the championship, who won the tournament. And because I'm still going through all of my audio, I don't have that for you here. Come back next week for that. It's coming. Did you go to Monster Bash? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to share your experiences with everybody here on Monster Kid Radio. Shoot me an email at monsterkidradio@gmail.com or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail at 503-479-5657. That's 503-479-5MKR. You can find this on our website over at monsterkidradio.net, where you can check out the show notes and learn about everything that we've talked about here on the show and, well, a few other things too, like links to our Facebook page and our Facebook group and our Twitter. We're there. Plus, there is a link to the Monster Kid Radio on YouTube channel. If you head over there and subscribe to the channel there, maybe even click the bell for notifications, you'll be updated when I do upload some video from Monster Bash. Stay tuned. That's coming too. What's coming up next week? Well, it's more Monster Bash. There's just too much to put into one episode. So come back next week for more of that. Between now and then, Monster Kid Radio is a registered service mark of Monster Kid Radio LLC. All original content of Monster Kid Radio by Monster Kid Radio LLC is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.0 Unported License. Professor Frenzy's Bedtime Stories is copyright 2019 Jerry Green. My name is Derek M. Cook. I'll talk to everybody next week. Ciao.